Hi, so last week we talked about shapes in my stories, and you guys wanted a video, and it took me forever to get it done. So here it is. We'll go one shape at a time. So this will be dedicated only to the bowl, and then I'll move on to the other shapes. By the way, if it's not obvious to you which shape you are, more than likely you just don't have one, and that's fine. Not everybody has a specific discernible shape, and that's fine. Also, other people might call them something else, but these are the names that I will be using. Like when anything else regarding the chart, you're basically dealing with degrees and geometry. And so this right here can show you how many degrees in whatever amount of space we're talking about. So you might want to screenshot this as a frame of reference for later on, whether this shape applies to you or the next one. Okay, so now let's look at the actual shape. In this shape, all of the planets will sit at only one half of the wheel or chart at about 180 degrees, give or take 15 degrees. And where you see that red line, sometimes, but not always, people will have an opposition there. An opposition is an aspect, and basically what that means is that the planets are across from each other and they are at odds with each other, so it can give some tension or a difficult aspect to the chart. It is one of the easiest shapes to detect because basically one half of the wheel is occupied and the other half is empty, and the half that is full can be on any side, up or down, east, west. It doesn't really matter. All that matters is that half the chart is empty and half the chart is occupied. This is another example of the way that it can look, where I drew that red line. That's the demarcation line, and that is also called the rim. And the planets that fall on that line and that basically touch the empty half of the wheel or chart, those planets are said to be the most important in your chart. So this is a real life example of someone who actually has this shape in their chart. This belongs to actress Goldie Hawn, and as you can see, the rim is formed by Mercury on the left and Uranus on the right. I never know how to pronounce that correctly, but anyway, so those would be the two important planets in her chart. So what does it mean to have this shape? It can indicate that you feel like something's missing, like you're missing your other half, and you try to make yourself complete somehow. Subconsciously, you can try to achieve that and fill that void by dating or through your friends. Sometimes you can have this inclination to get really invested in causes and missions, and you're just doing that to sort of fill that out, that space that you feel like it's empty. People with this shape have this tendency to dedicate themselves to a cause or a mission or advocate for something. It might even be like an ideal or a burden that you carry with you. And usually you will define your worth only if you feel like you've made a significant contribution to the world. And you will usually do very well in a crisis. You might look for balance and harmony in your environment to compensate for the fact that you don't have that balance in your chart. Another thing to mention is that the space that's occupied, those are the gifts that you have. That's what you give to the world. And the space that is empty, that is what you're missing and what you're looking for in the world. The challenge for you will be to be aware of and integrate the qualities of the opposing hemisphere, basically the empty half. You will not find fulfillment by trying to take ownership of people, things, or ideals. You really need to look into the planets that fall on the rim because they will give you the key to how you need to achieve that. However, be careful because sometimes those planets can become an obsession for you. So try to have that balance when it comes to that. Overall, you're independent, you're focused, you have strong core values, and you tend to think of others and how to benefit them or bring benefit to them. And also, you look for things that are meaningful and fulfilling. I know that independence sounds like contradictory to what I said about subconsciously depending on people. And yeah, that's because it's subconscious. You're not aware of the fact that you do that. It's something that you do without really meaning to or being aware of it. So I don't know how long this is so far, but now I want to look into where it actually falls, like if it falls on the top, bottom, left, or right, and what that would mean for you. Excuse my shitty drawing, but basically, if most of your ball falls on the top, on the upper hemisphere, you are someone who's probably confident and social or extroverted, but you have a hard time relating in a personal level. You can have a very objective approach. You can be a very public person. Like, there's not a lot of stuff you can hide from people. You're very giving to others, and there's a lot of reliance on others. But it can also mean that you might give too much to other people. But yeah, it just basically puts it so that you are lacking on when it comes to personal and more intimate levels of connection. If everything or almost everything is in the lower hemisphere, then you are a more introverted, subjective person. You can be more private, and you will be the most independent out of all of the people with this shape. You can be great with yourself, and you have a harder time coming out of your shell. Basically, you're very comfortable with yourself because all the houses that you're passing through are very personal and intimate in nature. And your challenge would be the more social and public roles that you would have to play, because that's what you're missing, the social and public parts of your chart. If almost everything falls on the left hemisphere, you are more independent, you have leadership qualities, you're self-motivated, and you have a lot of initiative. You basically direct your own life, and you're always in charge of what happens. You have more concerns regarding finding balance between personal and relationship needs. And last but not least, we'll look into the right hemisphere. In this case, you are more dependent, and you might have to live your life according to what other people dictate. Basically, you start things because other people started them first. That's why you get involved. This is also true for charts in general. When you are more right hemisphere heavy, basically you benefit a lot from what other people do. But that can have, good parts and bad parts depending on what it is. In the previous case, if you had any major problems, they were usually caused by you. But in this position, if you have any major problems, they're usually caused by other people. But also with this position, something that's really good is that you can really take advantage of situations and the environment you're in. So like I said, it can be kind of an opportunistic type of position depending on how you feel about that. But basically others play a huge role in your life, and you play sort of a lesser role in how your life is directed. I'm gonna have to end this right here because I don't think I'll have enough time, because this thing only allows 10 minutes on each video. There's something called the cutting planet that I would like to discuss, but I keep getting contradicting information on it. So there's this book I want to get, and usually I get it on thrift books, but this one I can't find there. It's out of stock. So if you're able to, and if you want, I would love if you help me with it. This is my Cash App thingy handle, or whatever it's called. Because I want to get this book, and it's a little bit pricey, and then I can have all the facts about the situation, and I can know more in depth about the shapes and stuff like that. I will see if I can try to get like a part 2 if this wasn't enough. And yeah, I know I talk really slow, but I have an accent, so I have to do it, otherwise you wouldn't understand what I say. I even wonder now if you understand what I say. But anyway, I'll leave on the next slide the websites where you can also look at the other shapes, and you can find more information, and maybe it can be explained in a more thorough way than I can. So yeah, that's that.